Hi, this is Andre, Iterate. This is the second video I'm making about the patches I contributed to Bitwig's recent pack called Grid Alchemy. I just uploaded the first video, which was about some of the glitch devices, and this is the second video where I'm going to focus on the waveshapers. So I included 5 different waveshapers in the pack that all kind of work differently. So I'm just going to go through each one of them and kind of describe what they do and give you a little overview of them. On the more complicated ones, I put pretty long descriptions of how they work. Let's start with the simplest of them and then get into the more complex ones. So to start with, here, let me actually turn this off. So to start with, we have just basically a sine wave that coming out of that I recorded from phase 4. So in most of these, the fold acts like kind of a macro that might be doing a few things. So if I turn up fold here, and kind of what I was trying to get with this was one that you could modulate, for example, the poles without it, without the phase inverting, and you getting that kind of beating effect. So you can basically modulate the poles and still have like a solid fundamental, which you can see here. Okay, and then these other parameters affect different things, but in most of these I have various types that you can kind of morph between. So type 0 is the one that does that, and type 0 was done with these transfer curves. The other types are basically, it's just morphing through various Bitwig shapers, but I kind of played with some of these controls to make them try to make them sound kind of good together for just sweeping through them. Audio just ended, but anyway, when I was first doing this wave shaper, basically the reason I had even added this like amp fund and depth and bend was I was trying to just get that basic behavior that I was showing you of getting the fundamental to hold while sweeping through the pulls. But basically these are all just going to kind of affect it in different ways, and you can kind of play with it. It doesn't need to be all that exact. Depth is kind of like a wet dry control, but not exactly. Okay, so yeah, it's kind of like a macro wave shaper. And oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention, so that this one was type D. When you first load it, it has some just random modulation, which is just so it would do something when you first turn it on. So I just turned that off so I could just use the fold. Okay. And then, the second one is this type E, which is very similar, but the main difference with it is that it doesn't have that main one with the transfer curve. It's basically just morphing through some of Bitwig's shapers, but it does it in a slightly different way. Okay, and the main reason I made these two of these was actually to put them together into one of the bigger patches, which I'll be showing you. I'll show you now. Okay, so the next wave shaper is this one, Phasewarp Shaper XL. And this one's basically a combination of the previous two, except it adds a whole phase splitting setup, so it allows you to process different parts of the waveform by the different shapers. Let me make sure I'm recording. Okay. So so yeah, you have the type D and type E wave shapers, and then you have a couple filters, and the main thing is this whole splitting matrix, so that it allows you to like I was saying, process different parts of the waveform. So I'll play note, you can kind of see what I'm saying. So you can see I was just playing with the filter FM over there, but it only affects one part of the waveform. Actually, it's affecting two parts right here. Let me turn this off, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. So you see, it's just affecting the green part because of the way I have it set up. But let's get to the filters in a minute. So let's first just look at the basic wave shapers over here. So we have this green one is shaper A, this purple one is shaper B, and you can see that they process different parts of the waveform. And then you can see in this example, the green is processing the middle of the waveform, and the purple's processing the edges. But we can change that with this thing split type. So if we put it down here, it's going to be plus and minus, and then in the middle, like you saw, it goes to middle and edges, and then if you go to the other side, it's going to be in reverse. You can see if I sweep this control, what's going to happen. So if it's over here, you see the crossover is now going to control it like this. And then on top of that, there's this thing switch AB, which will switch which shaper is processing which part of the waveform, like this. Okay, and then let me put this back. And then, yeah, besides that, these controls are the same as the previous two wave shapers that I showed you. So then if we get into the filters, so filter 1 by default only processes shaper A. And so it does kind of a weird thing. So like, especially if you have resonance up on the filters, it can make the part of the waveform on shaper A start to drift away from shaper B. But if you, for example, have like the main kind of edges of the sine wave, or whatever your waveform is, in shaper B, it'll stay constant. So if I put this up, so you see how that's only affecting the green part, and the purple part is staying constant. Okay, and then if you don't want that behavior, if you want it to process the whole thing, you can hit reroute, and then it's going to process the whole thing. But then you don't see anything happening up here because that oscilloscope just shows what's going on in the wave shapers. This one shows what's going on post wave shapers in the filters. So then there's also excuse me, there's also a second wave shaper, a second filter, filter 2, and then you have routing options to go from parallel to serial. And yeah. And then, yeah, this is just for filter FM, amount, and pitch. And then you can decide which filter is going to receive it using these. And then, yeah, let's see. So that's basically it for the filters. So then if we go over here, you can see there's this whole input override section. So these will allow you to route different tracks into each of the shapers or into the filter FM. So it'll basically override what's coming in from the input of the track. And then you have a blend control over here. So this, like if I route something from another track into shaper A, this will blend from the input of the track into the external input. So that would allow you to sort of blend different waveforms that are coming in on different tracks into here, or even if you wanted to just plug oscillators into the second input on these blends, then you could do that too. And then excuse me, and then excuse me, and then there's input control and output control, and these are pretty important. The level of the waveform coming in makes a very big impact on how the wave shaping sounds and like what the folding's going to do. So I would definitely recommend playing with the input level, and then because of that, you might want to just control it with the output level, or match it so you can see in these oscilloscopes the input and output level, so you can kind of match them as you want. And then this over here just decides if the final output is hard or soft clipping. And then over here, these just control the oscilloscopes. So this one determines if the green one's on up here, and the purple one, this one determines whether or not you see the dry input on this one. And then this one over here determines whether or not we're looking at the final output of the wave shapers or the final output of the filters. So if it's over here, then we're going to see the final output of the shapers. If it's over here, we're going to see the final output of the filters. Okay, so I think that's basically it. This one, there's a lot going on, so I'd say it kind of takes time to sort of dial it in and find settings that you like, but there's kind of a lot you can do with this one. Like for me especially, I find it kind of interesting with reroute off, playing with filtering just one part of the waveform, because it gets these kind of weird squishy drifts away from the other part. So you see, it's kind of weird because you have like that part of the waveform is doing all this movement, but the sort of like fundamental part of that sine wave is just staying stagnant. So it's it'll do some pretty interesting stuff. And then the next wave shaper in here is this one that's called Phasewarp Shaper Extended. And this one's basically the same thing. It's got a little bit of differences on the filters, but the main difference with this one is that this one is a bit more modular. It's open-ended for using external devices within the kind of wave shaping within the wave shaping setup. So you can see this one adds these controls down here: external 1 mix, and then these E1 or external 1 macro 1, 2, and 3, and then you have external 2 mix and external 2 macro 1, 2, and 3. And so what these are controlling are these chains where you can insert other devices into the setup, so that it basically allows you to use either other Bitwig devices or other plugins or whatever you want inside of this whole phase splitting setup, so you can use them within your wave shapers. So basically you have these two chains over here, shaper 1 external, and you can see it's got these macro controls and the input level, so you can just put a device in there and set up macros how you want them for both shaper 1 and 2, and then you have access to them over here, and you can use them within the whole phase splitting setup. And so basically, like that's kind of the main difference between this one and the Phasewarp Shaper XL. They both use external signals in a different way. The other one allows you to override from other tracks, but this one allows you to actually use different effects within the wave shaping setup. I was thinking about making another version of this that was stripped down, that was just the external part, just to have a much lower CPU section or lower CPU setup for this that doesn't include any built-in wave shapers. But it would have been a little bit weird to have it in this pack because it would have made no sound when you turn it on. But maybe it's something I could do in the future. So that's that. And then all right, the last one is where is it? Legacy Plus, and I'm calling this one Legacy Plus because a few years ago I put out a very simplified version of this kind of wave shaper on the website Bitwiggers, but it didn't include all the features of these new ones. It was just like a very stripped down basic kind of phase splitter. But this one is a much sort of lighter weight phase splitting thing, so it doesn't include these like Type E and Type D wave folders, which are really kind of the big parts that take up a lot of processing. So this is just meant to have like a lighter weight one. And so instead of using those, it's just basically using Bitwig's built-in wave shapers. And so for each of the shapers, A and B, it just gives you a type and an amount. So like here, let me turn off the filter and just excuse me, and just show you what this does. So type is just going to scroll through these different types, and amount is just going to push up the knob for each one of these shapers. I kind of find this more interesting if split type is in the middle and you're doing this like middle and edges kind of thing, because then it just seems a little bit more controlled on the waveforms, because you don't get these totally like weird DC offset ones like those waveforms that I was just showing. Yeah, so you get the general idea with that. It's probably a lot cooler, this kind of thing, if you set up like an easier way to control these. You know, like I definitely like using something like where is it? Using this XY. So if you just, for example, have this control, like two of these controlling the type and the distortion for each, and then one knob for the crossover or whatever. Or if you set, presets using Paraseek 8 or using the Vector 4, Vector 8, then you can kind of control what you want, have some good sounding presets and morph between them. And then this also has some filters in there that I think, does it give you both the options to run them? Oh yeah, this one. So this one runs pre, and the other one runs post. I think on the entire signal. That sounds a little bit dirty, but yeah, this is kind of meant for very, very weird, extreme wave shaping. It's not like a subtle distortion. Although, for subtle distortions, I do use these Type E and Type D sometimes, just for thickening things up, especially like thickening up an 808. Sometimes I'll just play with the types and move the fold around a little bit, because you can find some sort of weird, just kind of strange characters and stumble on some sort of happy accents, because there's just a lot of variety within there. Yeah, so that's basically that. So there's these five wave shapers included. Yeah, I would say these Type E and Type D are the more sort of just straight up wave shapers, and I think probably in most cases these ones would get you what you need in terms of wave shaping. But then for more sort of weird and kind of experimental ones, these Phasewarp ones do some cool stuff. Probably my favorite is the Phasewarp Shaper XL. That's probably the one I would go to for these kind of things, and especially I like just the way the filters work with it and having that weird kind of filter drift going on. Yeah, you can stumble on some pretty weird sounds with that. Yeah, so I guess that's it for these wave shapers. If you have any questions about that, I'd say you can hit me up on Facebook or Instagram. Probably would be a lot quicker to check that than checking YouTube. I was mentioning on the other video, I don't really check YouTube very often. I haven't been active on YouTube in a few years. I was making tutorials in Bitwig a few years ago and just sort of stopped making them. Something I want to get back into at some point soon, but I just haven't been doing it. So yeah, if you want to get a hold of me, Instagram or Facebook, I'll be a lot quicker to reply on there. And yeah, thanks for watching. If you're interested in getting the pack, it's available on Bitwig's website. And yeah, thanks again. Bye.